Hello, 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 everyone. It's Stormy's World. I'm sitting here by myself today. My family's gone doing their stuff, and I am sitting here. As you can see, I'm crocheting. I'm gonna move it down so you guys can see me. Last week, well, the end of October was hard for me because, as some of you know, but not everybody knows, that our mother died 29 years ago on October the 28th. And we buried her on October the 31st. So October, the last week of October, is usually a pretty hard week for me to get through emotionally. But this year it was compounded with the fact that August the 30th was the 2-month mark of my brother's death. And of course, our weather changed. We got an early winter cold front come in, and the weather changing, and then got warm all of a sudden this last weekend. So on Wednesday night, I kind of noticed that my head was hurting really, really bad. I've had a really bad migraine for probably 2 weeks or so now. And I was sitting there trying to figure out what was going on with me. And by Thursday evening, I was feeling worse. And I started feeling like the back of my throat was kind of scratchy a little bit. And I was thinking, what's going on? Friday morning, I woke up sneezing and could not stop sneezing. And my nose started dripping. So it was allergies, guys. I was highly allergic to something that cold front brought in. And then the warm front that came back behind it. We weren't that cold for that many days. And then we got warm, and it's still warm here, of course. But it's not so hot that we have to turn on the ACs, and it's not that cold that we have to turn on the heaters. So I have told my guys that I want the doors and the windows open as much as possible, so maybe I can get rid of whatever is causing the allergies so I can get better. Friday night, I was really, really sick, and I ended up in bed almost all weekend because I don't do very well whenever I have nausea and vomiting bouts, because I dealt with that for so many years straight with my lupus that I have an extremely large hiatal hernia where more of my stomach is actually above my diaphragm than below it. And so therefore it puts pressure on my heart when I eat. So I have to eat very small meals more frequently during the day because my stomach just cannot have that much in it at one time. Or my blood pressure drops. And it drops so low, so fast, that I pass out. That's what they determined last year whenever in September and in October I ended up in the ER by ambulance because my blood pressure dropped so low, so fast that I really honestly thought I was dying. But that's what I felt like on Friday night. I think that my blood pressure fell, my blood sugar fell, and I felt like I was dying because my head hurt so bad from the sneezing, from the drainage, and from everything that was going on. I just could not get my bearings on Friday night. So my hubby went around the stores that had already closed to try to buy me a 7-Up because I was vomiting and nauseous. And he ended up going to the corner store. It's not corner store, it's actually called something else here. But the little convenience store across the street, and getting me a 7-Up. And that helped a lot. So I ended up finally sleeping. I really do appreciate the power of prayer and faith, because I prayed to Jehovah God to help me get through whatever was happening with me. and get me better. I was smart enough Friday morning to change my appointment for my infusion from yesterday morning to the 20th of this month. So I put off my infusion and I put off my ultrasound for my thyroid. I don't know if you guys can see it or not, but I have nodules on my thyroid that are, sometimes they get pretty swollen and they cause me problems, but it's one right here that's on my left side and one right over here on my right side. But they get swollen and sometimes the doctors get worried about it. And last year they did a biopsy and they drained it. And because they did a biopsy and they drained it, and it's not as large as it was before they did that procedure last year, the endocrinologist seems to think that it's just fluid built back up and that he's not going to do anything with doing biopsies at all this year, as long as it's not solid. If it turns out to be a solid mass in the ultrasound, then he'll do a biopsy, of course. But as long as it's a liquidy mass, then he's going to leave it alone this year. He said unless it grows and starts causing me more problems, he's not going to do anything about it this year, since I just had it biopsied last year and drained. That it's smaller than it was last year, so he's not that concerned about it right now. But back to me, guys. I've lost 8 pounds, and so I'm proud of that. I try to do as much intermittent fasting as I can, not eating after a certain hour at night, but I can't do like I want to do. Like I started out doing a year and a half ago. I started on a program called Eat Like a Bear, which is on YouTube. And Miss Amanda Rose, Amanda is really a wonderful person. It's Amanda Ross, I think. R-O-S-S, I think. But I can't remember right off the top of my head. But Miss Amanda, she has got a wonderful Facebook group, and she's got I'm trying to see if I can find her. Let me see if I can find it right quick on here. And I'm sorry, guys. I'm just like really tired today. Me being not feeling good has gotten me to realize that as much as I wanted to, I have to slow down a little bit because I am exhausted. Amanda Rose, I was right. R-O-S-E. So anyways, she has this thing called a ridiculously big salad. And me and my stomach cannot eat the ridiculously big salad. I would love to, because the concept works. It really does, guys. And I would love to be able to eat that ridiculously big salad one meal and be done with it every day. Because I'm not that keen on eating that much. That's been my problem the whole entire time that I've been dealing with my lupus. But back, I'd say probably 2007 through 2012, my lupus and the treatments that they were giving me would cause me to vomit all the time. And I think that's whenever I developed my hiatal hernia, which they did not discover until like 2017, 2018. And once they discovered it, then they sent me to some specialist, and that specialist was more like, I had it because I'm obese, because I'm overweight, I don't know how to stop eating, and things like that. And that's not true because I undereat, if anything. Um, always have, ever since I was a kid. But I'm here today, and I've got to do some work in my office in a little bit, but I'm just trying to relax a minute before I go in there. I'm hoping to be able to start working harder on cleaning up my craft area, my office, and getting things organized and ready for the new tax season for next year, and crafting. Because that's what I miss. I miss my crafting. I haven't really talked to you guys very much about my life before now, before my lupus and things like that. But I have a son who is grown, who lives in a group home. And he is epileptic. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I'm moving my leg. He is epileptic, and he has lost his vision. But my son was born with a rare disease called congenital toxoplasmosis. Congenital toxoplasmosis is a virus that you get from having a parasite, which I apparently got whenever I was a younger child or a teenager. They really didn't know when I had come in contact with this virus, but the virus is called toxoplasmosis. And it can lay dormant in your body until something traumatic or an illness can trigger it. And whenever I was 3 months pregnant, about, with my set of twins, which I didn't know I had twins at that time, I had went to one ultrasound, and at first they told me they heard 2 heartbeats, but they couldn't find the second baby. So they thought, well, maybe we just heard the same heartbeat, but the baby moved. And then the second time I went for another ultrasound, they told me that there was only 1 heartbeat. So in between those 2 ultrasounds, I had a very traumatic burn to both of my legs and my stomach. And it sent me into traumatic shock. And they say that traumatic shock is what probably triggered this dormant virus in my body while I was pregnant with my twins. I didn't know this, of course, right? So I went through a couple of months of therapy for the really bad burns, for 2nd and 3rd degree burns on my right leg. The left leg wasn't burnt that bad, but the other leg was, or maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's the right leg that was just spotted, and the left leg was burnt really, really bad. I can't remember, guys. I'm talking about that's 40 years ago, and I've had 4 strokes since then. So, anyways, when I look at my scarring, I can see, because my legs are discolored on my thighs. But I'm not going to go looking for those scars right now today to be correct about this in my video. So my son Christopher was coming early at 37 weeks gestation. And the reason being is because he was very, very sick. And I didn't know it until he was born. All measurements measured him being a big, healthy baby. They thought he was going to be a big, healthy 7 to 8 pound baby, they didn't realize that there was 2 of them in there, or 2 amniotic sacs in there. And so I went to have him. And my son Christopher is special. He's really special. He's my little statistical miracle baby, is what he is. Because Christopher was the first child born in the United States with congenital toxoplasmosis. Congenital means during gestation, period. During pregnancy, congenital, being born with this disease. And Christopher was the first one that was born and actually survived with congenital toxoplasmosis. He's not the last, guys. There have been a couple of others. But during that time, we didn't know what we were looking at because his disease was so rare that even Crippled Children's organization didn't want to help us with our medical care or anything else for Christopher because his disease was so rare and there was very little known about it, that they just figured that they weren't going to help because they didn't want to obligate themselves to help me, because they didn't know how expensive it would end up being, I don't think. But we managed. We managed over the years to take care of Christopher. His daddy had a really good job, and we had really good insurance that paid for things. And later on, Christopher was qualified for SSI, which is Supplemental Security Income, and then he got Medicaid after that. So we were very fortunate that Christopher, up until adulthood, was taken care of by medical insurance. But we went through some hardships, big time hardships, because since he was a one-of-a-kind miracle baby, they didn't know what to expect and what to watch out for. So Christopher was sent home from the hospital when he was 5 days old, out of NICU. The doctor asked me if I wanted to take my baby home, and I thought he was joking with me because he had already told me that Christopher would be there for an unknown amount of time. But the doctors figured out that there was nothing that they could probably do for him, and they let me take him home. At that time, they didn't know exactly what Christopher had. They were bouncing it around, trying to figure out what he had, if it was cytomegalovirus, or if it was something else that they just didn't know what it was. And he was a week old when I took him home, and the doctor told me that if he survived, he gave me a 2-week appointment and told me to bring him back in 2 weeks after they discharged him. And so I told them if that was what they were going to do, to please not disclose any of that with my parents or with the baby's daddy, Christopher's daddy, because I didn't want anybody else to treat Christopher with kid gloves. I wanted them to treat my son like a normal kid for whatever time I had him. And that's how I treated him. Like a precious gift from Jehovah God, what he was. And I always pushed him to be the best he could be. No excuses. But when Christopher was little, he started having what the school told me was seizure disorder. And I didn't know, because I know I had a cousin that had epilepsy, but I was never around him when he had an attack. So I didn't know anything about epilepsy. I was young, guys, when Christopher was born. I was almost 20. He was born 20 years after I was, but 5 months before my birthday. He was born in February. I didn't turn 20 until July. So I was still young when my Christopher was born. And my baby was precious. He was the happiest little baby. He never cried. He never fussed. He was a good little baby. But then when he was about 2 weeks old, I started noticing that his soft spot started widening. And he started fussing. And within that last week before I was supposed to take him back for his third week appointment, 2 weeks after he was dismissed, it'll be his third week, I could put 4 fingers up here, guys, and 3 in the back of his skull where it had separated. And he was crying, and he would cling. He would just like cling to my clothes, just wanting to hang on to me. And so I took him into that appointment, and I wouldn't let anybody go in with me to go in and talk to the doctor. I went in by myself. And I asked the doctor, I said, is this what you meant by he was going to die on me? And the doctor said, okay, this is a development that I was waiting to see if it was going to happen so that we could get a better diagnosis. He said, do you mind if I take him right quick and go do an ultrasound of his brain? And I said, okay. And the doctor took him in and did an ultrasound and came back, and he said, Doreen, this gives me a totally different diagnosis. Your son was born with congenital toxoplasmosis, not cytomegalovirus, not anything else. Your son has developed massive hydrocephalus, and he has brain calcifications. This is how we have to treat him. But he needs a brain surgery, and he needs it right away. And the neurosurgeon that I'm going to send him to, the last time I heard, he was in Germany. So you're going to be flying to Germany with your baby on the next plane out. And I said, no. I've never been on an airplane. I'm afraid of heights. I'm not going anywhere. He said, Doreen, don't be stubborn. This is your baby's life you're talking about. I said, yeah, I know, but it's also mine. I'm deathly afraid of heights. I have never, ever been on a plane. So I'm going to pray that you find that doctor or one equivalent to him within driving distance. Now, Dr. Mydell, what's his name, had told me he didn't believe in God. But I told him, I said, I'm going to pray to my God, and you're going to find a doctor or that doctor close enough for me to drive to. The next day, I went back in to see him, and he told me, you know what? He said, your God, listen, because that doctor just transferred to San Antonio. So it was driving distance within Fort Hood in Killeen, Texas, to San Antonio, Texas. So that was on a Friday, and we were to be reporting to Wilford Hall Medical Center in San Antonio on Monday morning for Christopher to be admitted to the hospital there. My Christopher spent over 21 days in NICU in San Antonio. You guys remember I told you I was 19 and I was there by myself. My mom and dad had 3 younger siblings. My brother was 17, but my sisters were only 12 and 13. They had our 2 sisters. they had to deal with. So I was in San Antonio by myself with my Christopher. We went through ventricular taps. We went through a temporary shunt bag, like a colostomy bag, like a whatever kind of a catheter bag they put on his head to drain the fluid off of his brain. And that was in place for over a week because the protein count in his spinal fluid was way too high. So they had to bring that down. So they had to wait because the protein count in the spinal fluid being so high would clog the shunt. So they couldn't put in the VP shunt. So he had this VP external shunt, temporary shunt, in place. They were having to do lumbar punctures. They were having to do, like I said, they did 2 ventricular taps when they decided it was safer to place this temporary shunt instead of keep on doing the ventricular taps. Guys, this little girl prayed and read her Bible every day. And I told God, if you take him, I understand. I mean, if he dies, I understand. It's nothing your fault. I mean, if it's not your will that he live and me be his mom, I'm not angry about that. I want to thank you for the time I've had, which at this point was 4 weeks with my baby. And during that time, I learned how to cross stitch. I learned how to crochet better. I learned how to do needlepoint, plastic canvas. I had beautiful people, like my best friend in the whole wide world. My adopted second mom is what she calls herself to me. My second mom, Nancy. I met her through a group in a hospital called CHAPS. And I think it meant something like children with handicaps or people. Something like that. And, wow. That friendship has lasted for 40 years, guys. To this day, Nancy writes me and calls me and remembers her adopted daughter. And she took me into her home. She got me out of the hospital one day, took me to her home, washed my clothes, let me take a shower, gave me a home-cooked meal, took me back to the hospital. She brought me plastic canvas projects to work on at the hospital. It was a baby mobile I made Christopher. His neurosurgeon secretary taught me how to cross stitch. Things like that. I mean, it was crazy things. But my crafting kept me sane through the most difficult time of my life. Raising a special needs child. When Christopher was 5, he developed this epileptic disorders that the school told me about. I took him into that hospital's neurosurgeon. And I asked the neurosurgeon to please check his shunt tubing because Christopher was a experiment. It was a coiled up tubing that they placed into his abdominal cavity that was supposed to uncoil as he grew taller. But you're talking about a baby that they didn't expect to live a year at the most. And here he was, 5 years old, and in school. And I was thinking he grew so tall, maybe the shunt tubing ran out. And the doctor told me I didn't know what I was talking about. That I was one of those, what was it called? Munchausen's disorder? One of those kind of mothers that was trying to bring him into the hospital for attention for myself. That he was throwing temper tantrums to take him home and spank him because that's what he needed. And that I didn't know what I was talking about. Okay, I was 19. I thought, okay, doctors know best. So I, for a couple of weeks, believed what the doctor had told me. And I would reprimand Christopher for throwing temper tantrums. And all of a sudden, one morning, I went in to wake up Christopher for school, 6 something in the morning. His daddy, my uncles, my brother had all left to go to work in San Antonio. And I was in Belton. And I went in to get Christopher up for school, and he was cold, and he was rigid, and he was blue. I don't know how long he had been seizing, but he was in a full-blown grand mal seizure. I woke up Rita, got her dressed, got Christopher out of the bed, got him in the car, in the truck. I was in the truck, and I wasn't even in the car. And Rita was 3. She kept asking me, was her brother going to die? I couldn't get him in a car seat. So I laid him across the floorboard of the truck. And I drove him to the hospital. And the doctor started anticonvulsant medications right away. It took them 10.5 hours to get him to stop seizing. He was comatose. Up until that point in time, the school had told me Christopher was extremely intelligent. He was a genius. School for the Blind had told me that when he was 3 years old, that he had already compensated all of his lost. He was visually impaired. He wasn't blind. He was visually impaired. But he had already compensated all the other senses to take up for what his vision lacked. And at that point, they told me that he was really intelligent. And the University of New York was doing a special project with the 50 top children in the United States with the highest potential for learning in the special education programs, preschool through high school. And Christopher was one of those 50 students that they chose to research and videotape. So just 2 or 3 weeks before this, I had been told my son was a genius. That doctor who told me I didn't know what I was talking about, told me I was doing this for attention, let my baby lose that. Because the next day when Christopher came to, the doctors came in talking to me about my mentally retarded child. I said, don't call my child retarded because he's not retarded. Told me, yeah, he was. I said, my son is not retarded. He may be a special needs child, but he's not retarded. He never has been, he never will be. And so they started treating Christopher for epilepsy. Never once did this doctor check out his shunt tubing. Not once. My Christopher suffered big time. For 4 years. In 1991, in November, I had a hysterectomy because I had dealt with cancer in my uterus, my cervix. So they took it all out. I had staples in my stomach, and my son was comatose in my bed with me. And he was crying in pain. I couldn't take it anymore. So I told Rita to come with me. We were going to take Christopher to the hospital. She helped me get him out of the house and into the car. She went, opened the doors for me because I was carrying him. You're talking about a 9-year-old child weighing almost 80 pounds. And I was supposed to pick up 5 pounds. And she opened the car door. I got him in the back seat. She got her little car seat and she buckled herself in. And I drove a standard Camaro from Belton to Temple to the hospital. Got into the ER, and I was carrying him out of my car into the ER. And I stumbled. And I fell to the floor, to my knees. I wasn't about to drop my child. So Rita ran into the ER and told him, please come help my mama. She's bleeding, and my brother's dead. He's dying. So go help my mama, please. And doctors came out. They got a wheelchair and they got a bed. They put him in a bed and they put me in a wheelchair. I had pulled a couple of my staples loose, trying to carry my son into the hospital. And I just asked them, I said, please just give him some pain medicine and let him die without so much pain. I just can't see him dying with all that pain. Please, help my baby. And they asked me what was going on, and I told them. They said, what do you think it is? I said, I think that doctor that used to be here at your hospital let my baby suffer with epilepsy because his shunt tubing ran out and he refused to listen to me because he thought I was stupid. They had a new neurosurgeon, new neurology department doctor. And this doctor took one look at my son and told me, I'll give him the medication to put him out of pain and ease his pain. But while I take him in to have some CT scans done, can you please go let the ER doctors tend to your surgical site? And I said, okay. So I did that. They put a couple more staples in, closed my suture up, bandaged it up for me. And the doctor came back and he said, your son's shunt tubing ran out. I said, yeah, I know. And he told me when it had been revised. I said, he's never had a revision because I begged that doctor when he started having seizures to check it out. And he told me I was stupid. I didn't know what I was talking about. So that was the first shunt revision Christopher had. Christopher was born in 1984, and this was in 1991. It was in 89, I'm sorry. It was in 89 he started having seizures. In 89. He was 5 years old. He started having, so for 2 years he suffered needlessly with convulsions. But once they started, convulsions don't just stop. So he already had all that brain damage because of the nonstop, uncontrollable convulsions. The very first one could have been prevented if that doctor would have just listened to me. The doctor came back out and told me that he was going to schedule Christopher for an emergency shunt revision the next morning, 5 o'clock. Christopher had a second revision because the little port up there at the top of the VP shunt valve, the shunt valve, stopped working properly, and it would drain off too much water off of his ventricles, and then it would fill up too much water on his ventricles, and they call it split ventricle syndrome, where he'd go from one extreme to the other in a matter of hours, and his body just didn't know what to do, how to react. So he had that revision. I want to say in 1993. About the same time my grandfather died. That spring. My grandfather died. My uncle had died and Christopher had a shunt revision, like all in the same year. So it was like all hard stuff to deal with. But Christopher has not had to have a shunt revision since 1991. 93, I'm sorry. A shunt revision since 1993. He has not had to have the tubing replaced since 1991. So Christopher is doing great, guys. He is going to be 40 years old in February 2024. He'll be 40. My baby chose, when he turned 21 and graduated from high school, to be an adult boy and move out of mama's house. That was his choice, not mine. My Christopher wanted to let me have a life because I had always taken care of him. And my brother in August reminded me of that. That I went from taking care of Christopher to taking care of Dustin and Destiny, to taking care of him. So, this is it, guys. My brother told me to stop being a caregiver and start taking care of me. So that's the purpose of my video today. To kind of let you guys know that for the last 40 years, I have been a caregiver. And my brother told me it's time for me. That I deserve better. I deserve to be happier. I deserve to pamper myself instead of worrying about everybody else. And that whenever he was gone, for me to start doing that. On the 30th of October, he's been gone 2 months. So I guess it's time for me to start doing me. So, in Stormy's world, you guys are fixing to start getting some videos of Caddy, move back, Mama. My little pickaninny just wanted to jump up here. I guess she heard me crying, so she has to come up here and be Mama's support baby. As you guys can see, I'm crocheting, and I've got a couple of projects that I'm gonna do. In my foundation, I've had a couple of requests for some things, so I'm going to make a crochet bag for a cancer victim and send that to her. I am going to do a couple of chemo caps for another woman who shaved her head for her best friend who's going through cancer, who lost her hair for her chemo. So I'm going to make them some cute little newsboy baseball cap type chemo caps. I think they'll be cute. And I have a cross stitch project for one of my best friends in a crochet group. She's like my older sister I never had. Christopher lost his twin, and that'll be another story I'll tell you one of these days too. I had a twin that I lost. Only my twin was actually aborted earlier on in my pregnancy. Whereas Christopher's came full term with him. It was deceased in the womb. Thankfully, my two babies were in two different amniotic sacs, so therefore the one did not affect the other one. And Christopher survived. My mom lost my twin, and then she was put in the hospital on bed rest to keep from losing me too. They thought that she had lost all of her baby, but when they did tests, they heard my heartbeat. So they put her on bed rest and kept me alive. So I've always felt like I had an older sister out there somewhere. Or an older brother. But this friend of mine is very, very close to me, so I'm doing a cross-stitch project for her. And I'm wanting to finish that up this month and get that off to her. And then I have a few things that I want to do for me to fix up my office, because I want to put my paint easel up. I want to put my quilt rack up. And I want to have my resin desks the way that I want them, because I'm going to start designing my own jewelry like I wanted to a long time ago. My brother gave me a couple of bucks and told me to order a, what is it called? Airbrush kit. So I got me an airbrush painter for the first time in my life. I've always wanted one. Always wanted one. But he got me one. So that's going to make some pretty paintings, some pretty jewelry, some pretty effects on some of my resin stuff, and some pretty effects on some ceramic stuff that I want to make. So I have some things that I have up here, guys. It's all fixing to come out right here in the videos that I'm making for you guys. So I want you all to realize that I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart for being my followers. And speaking of which, I got 65, yay, 65 subscribers. Please like, comment, share my videos. Let others know that I'm here to show people that just because you have an invisible disease that can kill you is no reason to stop living. Because if I would have let that happen to me, I would have died a long time ago. I would not be here today to be trying to encourage others. And like I said, I guess that's what encouraged my son to live for 40 years instead of dying within the 2 to 3 weeks that they thought he was going to live. And I'm so grateful for that. to that, I'm thankful to Jehovah God because He's always been there for me. Always answered my prayers. Just like Friday night when I was so sick, I was praying to please find relief because my head hurt so bad. And I was really afraid, guys, that I might have ended up having a stroke or something because my head hurt so bad and I was so nauseous and vomiting. And the allergies was just draining like crazy. And, all I could do was pray. Pray. Jehovah, just give me endurance. Give me the strength to get through this because, the trials we live through make us stronger. So I've been through a lot of trials, things that I have not talked to anybody about in my life. Things that have made me me. And eventually, maybe someday I'll talk about them on here. But I just wanted to let you guys know that I will be updating my content quite often, even if it's just me talking and sitting here and crocheting like I'm doing here today. Or if I'm working up a resin art, or if I'm just drawing and creating my designs for my jewelry. But you guys are fixing to see a whole lot more of me. Like I said, living with the disease is different. I'm not going to say that my life hasn't changed from what it used to be because it has. Learning to live with lupus has been hard. Learning to live post-stroke has been harder. Learning to live acknowledging my limitations. That's been a real hard one. But never once have I given up on me. Never once have I given up on the person I am. I don't know if you guys can hear them, but the baby chicks are outside the window. I have my window open for air. I want some fresh air, guys. And the baby chickens are on the back side of my house, and they're making all kinds of racket. But, so this is a start. This is me coming to you guys, being real, because I've always told you I'm going to be real. My channel is all about being real. Lupus is ugly. Cancer is ugly. Cystic fibrosis is ugly. Being in a car wreck and becoming disabled is ugly. Epilepsy is ugly, but you can live through it. You can survive it. You just need support and you need help to know that it's okay. Somebody asked me one time, Mr. Rain, you're always smiling. You always got a smile on your face. You always find the positive in things. You're always giving to other people. How is that? And I said, it's because that's what we were born to do. Jehovah God put it in us. In the Bible, it says it's a person is happier when they give than when they receive. And I've always been that way ever since I was a child. Jesus told us to love God first and utmost with all of our hearts, all of our souls, all of our strength. Everything about our being is supposed to love God. And then he tells us to love one another. So that's me, guys. I've been that way since I was a little girl. Always, since I was a little girl. I learned how to crochet whenever I had my appendix out when I was, 9 years old. The lady across the hall from me in the hospital had just had a C-section. And we were in the hospital at the same time. Back then, when you had an operation, you had to stay in the hospital for a week or so. And I was in the hospital for quite a while, and she taught me how to crochet. So for that, I'm forever grateful, because that gave me my craft. My first mother-in-law, Odine, taught me how to read a pattern. So for that, I'm forever grateful as well, because that gave me endless opportunities. And later, Jehovah God embellished my talents, because he gave me the ability to know how to fix things that were messed up, torn, cut by accident, and repair things. Watching my mother whenever I was pregnant with Christopher, I learned how to quilt. My friend Vicky, that was the doctor's secretary, taught me how to cross stitch. My adopted mom, Nancy, taught me how to do plastic canvas. And my grandmother, my granny, and my grandmother both embroidered. And they taught me how to embroider. And my granny could sew, and she taught me how to sew. Both of my grandmothers were really good cooks, so they taught me how to cook. My daddy was a good cook. He taught me how to cook. So I've been very blessed. What God has not given me as natural God-given talents, I've had the brain to know how to learn how to do the rest, either by paying attention when I saw other people doing it, or not being too shy to ask them to teach me how to do it. And so I'm very, very grateful, because and my Aunt Stephanie, she taught me how to knit. I already had Christopher, and she taught me how to knit, because I thought knitted baby booties were so pretty. And so she taught me how to knit. And so for that, I'm grateful for her for teaching me that. So we're never too young or old to learn how to do something to keep ourselves occupied, to keep our minds from being drawn down, dragged down by depressing thoughts about our diseases that we have and what we have to deal with. If you're a victim of some kind of abuse, this can work for you too. It helped me to journal, to write. Didn't matter what I was writing, I just wrote. I wrote about the day. I wrote about the weather, what color the clouds were outside. Just write. Make yourself feel good about something. Get a coloring book. Get one of those adult coloring books and color. Just do something to get your mind off of how sick you might really be. Whatever that diagnosis is, we're not the first ones to go through these things, and we're not going to be the last. And the only regret that I'm ever going to have is that I did not get back up from my strokes fast enough. I was too scared. I had forgotten how to crochet. I had forgotten how to knit. I almost forgot how to cross stitch. I forgot how to cook, but I had to learn how to cook because I had to feed my husband. And so, yeah. I had to feed him, and it's just between us. Okay, how many hundreds of pounds of rice, cooked, burnt rice, that I threw away and had to restart? And he still complained about the half-burnt rice, guys. Probably for about a year after my stroke, whenever I started getting it right again. And then he still complained. It was either too soggy, it was too not hard, it hadn't boiled long enough so it was still hard, or it was too mushy because I cooked it too long. I mean, just everything. he didn't realize because I never spoke up about how I felt. I don't think he realized I forgot how to cook. I would go to boil eggs and put on water, and the water would boil out. I would forget what I was doing. I just couldn't put that thought process together. And it took me months and months of throwing away rice and buying rice and throwing away rice and buying rice for me to have enough courage to finally just tell him, okay, if you don't like it, I won't cook it no more. Just go ask your mama for your rice. Because I'm done. I'm done. I'm imperfect and I'm done. And I stopped cooking for him for a while. And it almost cost me my marriage. So the thing I think I'm trying to tell everybody is be communicative with your family members, your support group. Don't stop communicating about what you're going through, because they need to know how you feel. They need to know what's going on with you, because if they don't, how do they know how to react? Two wrongs don't make a right, people, ever. That evil for evil thing does not make it right. So when something bad happens to you guys, don't stop talking to your mate. He thought I stopped loving him. He thought that I hated him. He thought that I didn't respect him anymore. I thought that no matter what I was doing was wrong, that nothing I did was right, nothing was good enough anymore. And it was all just because I stopped talking to him and telling him what was going on in my mind and what was going on with me. He didn't know how to deal with having a young wife that had been diagnosed just a couple of years before that with a major illness that was fatal. I don't think he realized how serious it was until one of his ex-aunts died from it. When I had the strokes, I don't think he knew how to handle that his wife almost died. I had been completely paralyzed on the right side of my body. And when you really, really look at me, you can tell that my eye, it sags. My eye. I lost a lot of hearing in my right ear. The whole right side was paralyzed, guys. My eye was shut. My mouth was drooping. My right arm and my right leg, I couldn't move. I was having trouble breathing. And my blood stopped flowing in my body and it started coagulating in my veins. That's how serious my first stroke was. And mind you, I knew what happened right away. I got him to pull over and get me help right away. The ambulance got there and got me to the hospital right away. They got me that new TPA clot busting medication in my IV within the 3-hour period. So I'm very fortunate. Anybody who has had a stroke, you need to get to the hospital, because those medications can save your life. They can reverse the effects. Not 100%, but they can reverse the effects. And you can live post-stroke. I'm living proof of it. Has it been easy? No. It's been a hard road. Here it is. My first stroke was 18 years ago, and I have raised 2 kids. Kept operating my business for 6 months. I was afraid to even open my door just to notarize papers, because I was afraid that I didn't remember how to notarize papers. I didn't want to do anything. I was afraid of living. And I finally took that first step of faith and started living again. But it still wasn't until my niece was having her baby that I decided to crochet a baby blanket for her, that I started crocheting again. And so yeah, guys, you need to get back out there and practice until you get it right again, because that's what it's taken. In 2011, I opened up a foundation because I had outlived my mom. My mom died at 47. Her mom died at 47 from hereditary small oat cell lung cancer. And now I guess they call it small cell lung cancer. My mom said that MD Anderson called it small oat cell. I don't know what that meant, but it was a hereditary type cancer. They both died when they were 47. So whenever I outlived my mom, I opened up a foundation called Leona May Foundation, where I made chemo caps, and I made scarves, and I made jewelry, and I made things, and gave it to people who were going through similar things like cancer and chemo and strokes and lupus and fibromyalgia and depression and post-traumatic stress disorder and all these things, epilepsy, all these things that can turn our worlds upside down in a heartbeat. Grief is horrible, guys. Stress is horrible. Stress can kill us. So therefore, all these things I do have been means of me coping with the stresses of my life, because there's been a lot. So that's why I'm me. I am me because I do things to cope with the stresses of my life. Keep myself busy, keep myself occupied, keep myself from feeling so down and depressed that I just go get in bed and lay there and die. Because that's real, guys. That feeling is very real. When you're told you have a fatal disease, and it's up to you whether to lay there and let it kill you, or you learn how to live with it and do the best you can as long as you can. That's in here and in here, in your heart and in your mind. And that struggle and that battle is real. It's real. It's an ongoing, non-stopping circle. And I'm so grateful that I have my relationship with my God. Jehovah God is great. He's out there for everybody, guys. James 4:8, any Bible, read it. Draw close to me and I'll draw close to you. How much further does he need to just tell it? You get close to me and I'll be there for you. Isaiah 41:10, I am your God, do not fear. I have your right hand. I have your hand in my right hand of righteousness. He's there for us, guys. And in Isaiah 41:13, it says, I have your right hand in my right hand of righteousness. So that means he's facing us and he's pulling us up because we need that help. Not one day of my life have I not asked God to help me get through it. Because I have had to face things when I was just a child that no child should ever have to face. And I had nobody I could turn to except for God and my dog Lady. I talked to that dog. That dog knows all my secrets. She died with my secrets, bless her heart. I guess she was what you call a first service dog. And my little Pekingese, they're right there. They're so spot on. Emotional support dogs. I know they've gotten me through COVID. Caddy did, my little female. Her and her puppies have gotten me through Buddy's cancer and me losing him. Her little female puppy got Buddy through his last days. She cried for days after he was gone. She looked for him everywhere. Yeah. So the struggle is real, guys. And just because I have that relationship with God and I really trust him and fully believe in the promises of the Bible, that doesn't make it any easier to get through this system of things, because it's hard out there. Satan is attacking us so bad. And what's sad is a lot of people don't even realize that it's Satan doing all this. They think God's trying to punish us, when it's not God. He's there for us to help us get through it all. We just need to let him be. So, I wasn't trying to make this about God. I wasn't trying to make this about my religion or anything else. So I apologize. I don't want to offend anybody, because I believe everybody on this earth has their beliefs in their hearts, and I don't push mine on anybody. But I am there to encourage anybody that needs help. I am there because that's what me and my person is. I've always been that way. Since I was a teenager, I've always been able to pull up a scripture and help somebody get through some kind of hard time that they were going through. Even in junior high and high school. It's because I got that from my granny. My granny was that way. My granny knew her Bible forward and backward, and she could, girl, let me tell you. My granny had me reading her the Bible one day. She had her eyes closed, people. She had a bad chemo week that week, and I was reading her the Bible, and I was making this mistake and that mistake on those names in that Bible. My granny was correcting me with her eyes closed. My granny had that Bible down pat in her heart. Yes, she did. I grew up with that example. And that's where I get my faith from. My granny taught me how to read my Bible and pray to God for the meaning of the scriptures, and to look at the accounts in the Bible to get my faith. And that's where it's come from. So I'm sorry. I do not mean to put my faith on anybody. I do not mean to try to tell you that you need to believe what I believe, because I'm not here to judge anybody for what they believe. That's not my job. So everybody is welcome to my channel. Everybody. Because I'm here to try to share encouragement, whether it be through the Bible scriptures, or whether it be through my personal experiences, whether it be to learn how to craft, to learn how to cook, or whatever it is, to learn how to garden, whatever it is I'm going to be sharing on my videos from now on. I'm here to encourage somebody else to get up and make each day their day. Don't let a diagnosis put you in a bed and wait to die. Please. I saw my brother go through that. He stopped living. He stopped finding the joy in the day because I didn't get him here soon enough to help him keep finding joy in every day. And I feel bad about that. I really do. But he told me that what I'm doing here on this channel was a good thing for me to keep it up. Because when he was in the halfway house, He would watch my channel. He would listen to my videos. That made me feel so good. To know that my brother listened to me. And he told me that I have encouragement to give and to share with other people. He said it's not always about a gift, Doreen. A crocheted gift, a scarf, a cap. He said, those are nice. And you do a great job with that. He said, but what your heart and what you've been through and what you can share with others, he said, that's what they need. They need what you've given me the last couple of months more than I needed it. Because I've had you for 50-something years. They haven't. He said, I've watched you grow up. I've watched you go through all the battles you've been through. And he told me that if our parents were alive, they'd be so proud of me today. He said if our granny was alive, she'd be proud of you. So I hope when I welcome them back, when they're resurrected, that they'll be proud of me. My brother said he is. And so, since I wasn't going to take up too much of y'all's time, because I have to go to work today too, I have to do some things, but because you guys have been important to me, and you all mean a lot to me, I wanted to make sure that I could start my story about Christopher and where my crafting really came into play. That my crafting was a way to cope with the stresses and depressions of my life, the trials that I was going through, along with my Bible reading. I read my Bible every day, guys, and I pray every day. That's very important. Matthew 5:3. Happy are those conscious of their spiritual need. And it's true. I have an inner joy that no trial in this world can ever take away from me. No man can take it away from me. Because that joy comes from knowing that I have a relationship with the Almighty Creator God. I have a relationship with the most powerful being in this universe. And nobody can take that away. Not even Satan, no matter how hard he tries. My sisters always tell me, don't let Satan steal your joy, Doreen. And it's true. I don't. Some days are more depressing than others, and they're really hard for me to get through. But at the end of the day, I can stop and I can think of something in that day that had brought me joy and happiness. And I want to tell you all, please, if you have a loved one that's been on your mind, please call and tell them that you love them. Because tomorrow's not promised. I have known that my whole entire life, too much. We never know when our last time to tell somebody we love them is. So make sure that you tell the people you love them every day. Do something nice for somebody. Do something kind for somebody. But what my brother reminded me is, always, no matter what you're doing, no matter if you're a caregiver or not, always remember to do something each and every day for you. And that's what I have forgotten to do. Especially these last 18 years. Taking care of everybody else and forgetting me. When I needed it the most, in order to keep taking care of everybody else, I neglected me. Somebody reminded me yesterday that it was because of the things that I was going through with my brother that pushed me through this last year. In spite of my health issues, in spite of my lupus, in spite of the pneumonia, I kept going because I knew I had to. And I think that's why all of a sudden my body took a turn for the worse last week and the allergies got to me. Because of the fact that I had just pushed myself too far. I forgot to take care of me. So that's my message to you guys today. And I thank you all for being here. I didn't mean for it to be this lengthy. Thanks, guys. I'll see you next time.